Members, we are quorate, so we'll just make a start. And I thank you all for coming in for this one item agenda meeting. Members, just remind you, electronic devices should be switched off, excluding your tablet devices. And just today's business is to deal with the briefing from the department officials on the contracting steps to success. Members, I've apologies received at this minute in time from Phil Flanagan and the others. And Chris Little may be late. Chairperson's business. Members, just as correspondence from Kevin Shields regarding scheduling of an advice session and the scrutiny of primary legislation on Wednesday the 1st of October. This will be particularly helpful as we currently scrutinise the Office Bill and June Employment Bill in the next session. Members, you content that we schedule a session with Daniel Greenberg? Okay. Okay, members, moving on then to our agenda item. Item number 3 is the departmental briefing for the contracting of steps to success. Can I just welcome Colin Boyd, Director of Employment Services, Brendan McCann, Head of the New Employment Team, Mr Tony Montgomery, New Employment Team, Sharon Smith, Central Procurement Director. Morning, folks.
Morning, Sharon.
Very well. Colin, we've received your PowerPoint presentation minutes ago, so we do have it in front of us. We haven't had time to take it through it, but I'm sure you'll talk us through it.
We'll walk you through that, yeah.
Okay, over to you,
Thank you. Can I just thank the committee for arranging this additional meeting for us to brief members on the outcome of the Steps to Success Procurement Stage 2. Apologies in advance for you just receiving your packs just prior to the meeting. That would not be the normal form for us in terms of our standard briefings, but given the confidentiality of the procurement process, there were still letters issuing this morning to all of the participants of the process. They needed to know, for example, those who participated in stage 1 needed to get formal letters of outcome about which stage 2, so those only went out this morning. And the department will be communicating the outcome on its website, probably pretty much as we speak, at some point in time late this morning or early afternoon. The assessment we believe has yielded an outcome which will provide a quality service in each of the 3 contract areas across Northern Ireland, which will offer value for money, a sound delivery of services both to the unemployed and to employers, and we believe an improvement on the delivery and the consistency of delivery of performance that we have availed of in terms of steps to work. To run through the pack, I'm going to pass across in a second to Brendan once I just cover the objectives of the presentation, or to Sharon first of all and then to Brendan. Sharon's going to walk you through the first few slides in terms of the procurement process. Brendan's going to talk you through the outcomes and give you some feel for the supply chain, proposed supply chains, and what sort of some of the unique features were in relation to the successful bids. So our objectives this morning are to set out for you the successful organisations and the supply chains in each of the 3 contract package areas. We want to describe some of the key features and characteristics of delivery models which those organisations will use. And I'll touch at the very end on the next steps in terms of us moving into implementation, because we are now moving into a transition mode from steps to work into steps to success. So I'll hand across firstly to Sharon and then she'll switch across to Brendan as we walk through the slide deck.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation to present. I'm Sharon Smith and I'm Divisional Director of Central Procurement Directorate. So my role here is really as Head of Procurement for DEL, and I'm for responsibility for non-construction supplies and services. So Central Procurement Directorate were responsible for facilitating the procurement process for Steps to Success on behalf of DEL. And this procurement process for the training programme took 2 stages. It was a 2-stage procurement process, and it was under our control and guidance throughout. In fact, from the very earliest point, where we were involved with the department at the very early stages, so it was a very good controlled procurement process. The process met all the legislative and policy requirements. Now, the area of training programme falls under the Public Procurement Contracts Regulations, Public Contracts Regulations 2006 as amended. And it's classified as a Part B service, which means whilst it's not subject to the full rigour of the regulations, it's still bound by the treaty principles. The value of the contract deemed it to be of cross-border interest, and therefore the treaty principles of non-discrimination, openness, transparency and proportionality applied throughout, from the very early stages right through to the award of contract. And obviously the policy requirements with all the central procurement guidance notes were also adhered to. Stage 1 was a what we call a questionnaire, where tenderers were required to put their answers to a number of pre-stated questions. All tenderers were asked the same questions, and the questions were in relation to financial standing, technical capacity and capability. And that's really looking back at what the organisation is capable of doing. 18 tenders submitted responses to the questionnaires, and the way the contract was divided, or the competition was divided into 3 contract lots. So tenders had an opportunity to bid for all of the lots or individual lots, depending on what region they were particularly interested in. I'll come to how we decided on the lots later in the presentation. But from the 18 tenders that submitted questionnaires, 6 tenders were selected for each lot, and therefore the 6 tenders were notified, and the unsuccessful tenders at that stage were also notified. And in the notification, they were not only given information on how their questionnaire was evaluated, but also the questionnaires of the people who were taken through to the next stage. So they had sufficient information to see why they didn't get through as one of the 6 top tenders. So then stage 2 of the evaluation process really was stage 1 concluded, and stage 2, the 6 highest scoring tenders were invited to tender, and they therefore responded to predetermined criteria based on a specification that was drafted by the department. And the tenders responded through the eSource and NI system. The process runs very much through all of the controls and mechanisms. All the messages are very much controlled. Clarification questions are responded to, and there's set times for respond to clarifications before a tender competition concludes. So the 6 tenders, everyone was invited to tender, and then the tenders, it was up to them to submit their tenders in response to that. Stage 2, the evaluation of the bids were carried out by 5 senior staff from the Department for Employment and Learning, and also the resource from CPD facilitated the result. The tender evaluation was carried out online, so it's fully auditable, and each panel member scored individually before they then met in a consensus meeting to come to an agreed score. And the agreed score then was the winning highest tender for each individual lot. Now, when we set the tender out at the beginning, the design of the tender, it was very clear that we didn't want one tender to cover more than one lot. We felt it was important to have an equal share, and there were mechanisms in place had one tender scored the highest in each of the lot. However, the evaluation concluded that we didn't need to go to a determination on that, but there was a methodology set to actually conclude which tender got which lot, because we were mindful that we wanted to make sure that there was continuity of supply and that there was a chance for more than one supplier to get all of the lots. But as the evaluation concluded, those determinations didn't need to be taken. So the stage 2 has concluded. Before we concluded the stage, we went into a voluntary standstill position. As I mentioned earlier, Part B services aren't covered by the full rigour of the regulations. The rigour of the regulations requires that before you award a contract, you put your intention of award into the contractors, and allow them 10 days to challenge that decision. Part B services, the regulations don't require you to do that, but given the scale and the size of this contract, we put a 10-day voluntary standstill in place to allow tenders to digest the information that was reiterated back to them, and they had 10 days to challenge. That 10 days concluded on the 7th of July, and on 8th of July we awarded the contract without any challenges being received. I've already run through the procurement process. Really, the bids were evaluated separately. Bidding organisations also had an opportunity to offer discounting on the range of services being required, and that was only for outbid related elements, and they were evaluated as stated in the tender documents. The quality was the major determinant of the outcome. It really was. It was the quality of the bids, in addition to the cost of the service delivery, and the quality cost split was 60-40, 60% quality and 40% cost. So on the qualitative criteria, they were split into a number of sub-criteria, and each of the tenders received what the sub-criteria would be, and also what weighting was attributed to each of the sub-criteria. and they responded accordingly. So the weightings were provided and they responded, and they were scored from a 0 to 5 based on how they responded to each of those criteria, which then concluded in the winning 3 suppliers for the contract areas. So I will hand over now to Brendan for the outcome.
And following that process, Chair, the outcomes are as follows. For Contract Area 1, which is Greater Belfast, NGS UK were the successful supplier. Contract Lot 2, the North and North West, EOS Works, and Contract Area 3, South and South West Reading Partnership. Looking at in a little bit more detail at each of the contractors, the NGS contractor for Lot 1 for Belfast, they will be delivering up to 40% of the service directly, and 60% will be done through their supply chain. Their supply chain members that they proposed in their bid are NGS, People First, Springvale Training and Armstrong Learning. And in your handouts there is a list of the end-to-end contractors and the specialist providers for each of the contractors. Again, that gives you a flavour of the local involvement. And as we work through it, I think this sheet will provide the detail of the local involvement and the end-to-end suppliers. In terms of Contract Lot 2, EOS is proposing to deliver up to 42%, with 58% being delivered by their supply chain. Their supply chain members are Network Personnel, Customised Training Services, L Enterprises, Roe Valley Community Education Forum, North City Business Centre, and Roe Valley Enterprises Limited, along with USIL. Again, they have a list of specialist providers that can be seen as part of your pack. In Contract Area 3, Reading Partnership have a supply chain of Network Recruitment, Global Education, Rutledge Training and Recruitment, Omagh District Training Consortium, and South East Regional College. They're proposing to deliver between 35% and 40% directly, with the rest being directly delivered by their supply chain. And again, they have a long list of specialist providers that they can draw off. Details again in your pack. Moving to the key design features of the service that's going to be offered by each of the contractors. Just want to give you a few key points that stood out as part of the bid. NGS are building on a physical presence at Belfast Metropolitan College and proposing to use the sites of Belfast Metropolitan College for the delivery of their services. In terms of meeting the needs of their clients, they have a very detailed diagnostic process that will look at each individual's needs to determine what their employability barriers are, and will seek to address them through a progress to employment plan. They have a strong employer focus, building on the existing relationships that have been developed by their supply chain management and their own marketing expertise. There's a focus on providing help to those who are hardest to help with a specialist professional service in-house to support the in-house staff. There's continuous support for job seeking, so that individuals are supported throughout their journey with NGS, from the initial assessment to job entry and then to the early days of employment. and they have a strong local supply chain, which they assessed and selected as part of a competitive process. So in building their supply chain, they went through a mini competition to set that supply chain up, and they picked what they thought was the strongest, the best fitted with their delivery model. In terms of EOS, the key design features again were the flexible, personalised support to meet individuals' needs, supported by a wide range of specialists that would deal with perhaps mental health issues or drug and alcohol problems or whatever barriers presented by a client. They're proposing a specialist assessment for any ESA clients who go onto the programme, and their focus is very much on making sure that what they're doing meets the needs of the individual and the needs of employers. And they're proposing that there will be 2 large training type centres that will meet employers' needs, and they will be situated in Mollusk and Derry, Londonderry. And again, these centres will be very focused on working with employers, identifying what the needs are both in the present and in the future, and making sure that the training interventions that are put in place meet employers' needs. Very strong emphasis on employers, and proposing that there would be an employer partnership forum that would actually bind the employers and the supply chain members in working together to best provide employment opportunities for participants on the programme. Read in Partnership, again, their focus on the diagnostic assessment, making sure that the focus is on the individual's needs and identifying what the employability barriers are right from the outset, so that the ongoing support is focused on what the individual needs. They have a strong, again, focus on local labour market, and they have carried out a lot of local labour market intelligence as part of their bid process, contacting employers, carrying out surveys, identifying what the needs are in the local areas, so that, again, they will be best placed to meet the needs of people from the off. As a recruitment agency, originally, Reed have the ability to provide an end-to-end service to employers, and that's something that they're wanting to sell to employers, how they can assist them to recruit individuals that covers a number of categories, including the long-term unemployed. And again, supported by a number of local specialist supply chain members who they can draw off for specific needs. Given that this is a new programme with a new approach and lots of freedoms and flexibilities been given to providers to do what works for individual clients, the Department's monitoring and management of the programme is changing as a result. And we're taking a 3-pronged approach to monitoring and management of Steps to Success. My team, the policy team, will continue to work with providers and share best practice and make sure that we land Steps to Success as smoothly as possible, and that the delivery is in line with the policy intent. There will be a new contract monitoring regime to ensure compliance with the key requirements in the contract, and that will be carried out under the auspices of our Finance Director. And there will be a new quality management regime to assess the quality of the service being provided to the participants. Previously, this had been done by the Education and Training Inspectorate, but it has now been brought in-house and is being carried out by my colleague Angela Whiteside. So, Colin will now just briefly talk about where we are and the next steps.
Okay, thank you, Brendan and Sharon. This is really the culmination of 2 years' work on the part of the Department and our partners in CPD to help us to deliver on this. We've worked out over a period of time in great detail and through a lot of iterative processes what the right policy should be to make sure we have the right design. We haven't mimicked or cogged or followed what's happening in another region or country. We've tried to learn best practice and we've tried to develop something that's bespoke. I think that's very transparent when you go out to public consultation and you have a particular view of how you're going to deliver that policy. And we listened to that public consultation and we made quite a number of changes to the design going forward. We've run a very open, transparent procurement process and we've followed the best practice processes and steps and procedures right through that. So we're at the point today where we're communicating the outcome to yourselves. And we're at the point today where the department will be putting on its website the outcome to everyone, so that everyone knows what has happened. Next steps are we move from procurement into implementation, and there's a phase now over the next 2 to 3 months where we're into very detailed joint implementation with successful bidders. We have to phase in the implementation path so that we don't go live with all 3 contracts on the same day or even the same week, because there'll be a very heavy load on us and on them in terms of trying to do that. Our initial focus will be on making sure that new joiners move onto the programme easily, and then we'll look at the transfer of the stock clients from Steps to Work across to the providers. We will need to make sure over the next number of weeks that the operational readiness for Steps to Success, both on the part of the department in the front line and in supporting functions in the department, are ready for Steps to Success to go live. And we also want to make sure that the providers are also equally ready to go live from an operational readiness perspective as well. Before I conclude, I just wanted to say I know from the initial focus that all bidders had on this committee, I know that there would be a desire on the part of the preferred bidders, without them even saying it to me, that they would welcome an opportunity to meet yourselves and to present it to you. And probably they will even want to show you and practice in real terms what they've done elsewhere. And I leave that for them and for you to consider. But I know that overture will come your way. We're very happy to take any questions on the process.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Colin, I think one of the main concerns of the committee has always been expressed and we've been consistent is the lack of the local success at the initial bidding stage for the main contracts. And I do note that none of these 3 suppliers are actually Northern Ireland based. I can see from across the water, India seems to have quite a spread from Scotland through to West London, East Midlands, so that there's experience there. EOS has presence, and so is Reid, I think, in West London. So they have capability. Was that their performance over there taken into consideration in any of these scoring mechanisms? Would it give them an advantage over our own local companies?
Not really. What we were asking organisations to do was to respond to the criteria that we were setting out. So when we were looking at those, if you look at that slide on assessment criteria where we were looking for service to participants and service to employers, what we were asking all of the bidders to demonstrate for us is show us your experience in terms of putting together a service to participants. But reflect that experience to us on what you're going to do for us in Northern Ireland. Show us how you can put something on the ground in Northern Ireland that's going to make a difference, so that people who need work, particularly those who are hardest to help, not just job seekers, but everybody who needs help, actually gets that help. And what they were, every organisation had the same opportunity to say, well, this is what we've done in the past. This is what we've done with ESA clients in the past. This is what we've done in terms of employers that we linked with in the past. These are the types of schemes that we run to make sure that we provide the end-to-end service. So on the one hand, we want to make sure that we train up the unemployed people as they come to us, so that they are job ready whenever we have the links established with employers, that we will fit them into those employers. That's what really differentiates winning bids from those that didn't win, is that ability to really demonstrate end to end. We have the service delivery model, we have the case management frameworks, we have the employer linkages. Part of that is track record of success, and they're able to demonstrate. So we've got a pepper in that in, but Steps to Work contractors or Northern Ireland contractors had that same opportunity to do that. But it wasn't a matter of simply saying, well, if they've done that in the past, they can do it in the future. What they had to do that was translate it into, this is what we're going to do for you in October 2014 for the next 4 years. That's what this was about. So this was about taking what you'd got, what you'd learned, what you'd done, and putting it together in a really innovative, creative proposal to show us that you could deliver really good outcomes for job seekers and really good outcomes for employers. And that matching process is absolutely vital to this. And that, for me, and I know for the panel, I think those were the major factors in this. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, that's it. And the key thing was for them to put in place a proposition that would describe the service that they were going to deliver to the participants. And yes, they could draw on their previous experience, but all who entered the competition had experience to draw on, because we assessed their capability as part of stage 1.
So if you're asking us, were we wowed by organisations simply because they weren't Northern Ireland? No, we're not interested in that. I didn't care where the organisations came from.
Can I ask you, using your terminology, were you wowed by organisations who were able to prove large numbers, whereas the Northern Ireland companies wouldn't have had that same base to work on?
It wasn't really about volume in that sense. It was more about the high quality of the provision and the linkages between the various stages. Some of the organisations, for example, were able to demonstrate for us, we can take a client from the point in time they're referred to us, and we can manage and assess their growth and what they call distance travelled, how far they have actually come in terms of their ability as a job seeker. And we can show you what additional skills they've acquired. The blending, what they've done is they've blended the diagnostic process with training. The training element was very, very strong in this, so the training or employability access was, I think, was really unique in the winning bids. They really showed how that would work. So we were very, very clear that through the programme that people were going to go through, the case management framework was genuinely following a personalised process, so that people weren't just been milled through a sheep dip approach. You go through these next 7 or 8 modules and out the other end and you'll suddenly become employable. It was very much the individual, the diagnosis of the individual, their own personal plan, and making sure that then they were exposed to the right things. And a lot of that was about sectoral training as well as general employability training as well. And one of the things that I thought was really imaginative about this was I'm seeing really good employer linkages on the ground already, where organisations have gone and they've done their marketing, they've done their research, they know the job densities across the province, they know the issues, they know the sectors are performing, the sectors aren't, they know where they're likeliest to get people into jobs, where they're not. The same opportunities were there to explain all of that across all bids. So volumes weren't really the issue. It was more about the know-how and the ability to demonstrate that they'd done it in the past.
Some of those Northern Ireland companies, and I'm not specifying anybody in particular, they weren't successful at stage 1, but you could find yourself further down the supply chains, so don't give up hope. Looking just briefly through these MTN suppliers on the specialists, there are a number of major names who, with this committee, would probably have thought had good success in steps to work, or were reasonable in steps to work, that are missing. What is the opportunity for them now? Is that?
Well, as Brendan said, these bidders have gone through an assessment process and they've tried to match up who they think's best suited to give both the quality coverage and the geographical coverage across the contract area. There are proposed supply chains. Now, we can't go back to the bidders and say we think you should include X, Y, or Z organisation. But what I would say is they are proposed, so I wouldn't think the door is totally closed. There are organisations that are out there who haven't been part of a successful bid in terms of supply chain. I mean, if I was one of those organisations, I wouldn't think twice about trying to hammer on somebody's door to say, "Look, I've got something to offer here. Could you talk to me?" But that's a commercial matter between them and the preferred bidder. That's not something that we can intervene.
So there's no contracts signed between main suppliers and supply chain?
There are heads of agreement that are signed. I don't know. There wouldn't be formally binding. Sean maybe has more of a view on that at this stage.
Those are commercial decisions. They put forward their supply chain, and then whatever linkages they have with the supply chain chair, that would be commercially sensitive. They wouldn't share that with us. We could ask for disclosure under the audit requirement in our contract, but generally those are commercial arrangements with the prime and the subcontractors. Usually the contractual clause allows subcontracting arrangements to change subject to the agreement of the authority. So if the subcontractor is deemed to be fit for purpose in terms of the contract, then there should be no disagreement of the new subcontractor being put in place.
So the authority is the department in this stage?
Yes.
And the breakdown just of percentages between delivery, between the main supplier then and supply chain, lot 1, 40% Ingenious, 60% supply chain, 42 EOS, 58% supply chain, 35 to 40% Reed, 60 to 65% supply chain. Is that monitored, managed, or is that ballpark figure?
Well, again, that was the initial proposal. The outworkings of that, again, will form part of the contract management arrangements, and we will be looking to see how the model is rolled out in practice. We, as part of the implementation arrangements, will be firming up just what their delivery model is in terms of the direct delivery versus what will go to the supply chain. So we will have more information on that in due course. But again, it's for the lead contractor to determine what is the best arrangement in terms of meeting the needs of both the department and the unemployed.
Chair, no, Tony wants to come in.
Just that in all employment programmes, they're demand-led. The clients that come forwards in many ways select a particular provider that is most appropriate to them geographically, or, for instance, a breakdown between JSA and ESA. So these are, I suppose, at this stage indicative based on the information that we have given the providers, but our forecasts, as we made very clear, as with all forecasts, are dependent on future economic upturns, downturns and so on. We can indicate the numbers and the potential breakdown, but in a way they have come back to meet our request by saying how they expect, if the numbers that we identified come forward in the categories, how they will meet them.
Okay. And then Sharon, suppose just one for you on that same percentage breakdown between contract and supply chain, finances, payments, again, solely up to the main contractor?
We are exploring the use of project bank accounts. That is being piloted in the construction division. We haven't come to a conclusion on that. We're still working through the finer detail. We're hoping to have a conclusion by the end of July.
Explain that, sorry, what was that? What does that mean?
Project bank accounts are where the finances for the project is put into an account which is accessible, so that, for example, if the prime contractor goes out of business, that money isn't completely lost and the supply chain can then receive those funds. So that allows transparency over the fund transfer between the prime and the subcontractor. It is a new way, because of some of the issues with the supply, where prime contractors have gone into liquidation and their finances are frozen, and there's a huge supply chain that are without funds for services already delivered. This is a new way of government trying to tackle that problem. It has been discussed, it is being looked as an option. We understand that there's a supply chain issue, and we want to make sure that the funds flow to them as expediently as possible.
It's a complex one, Chair, particularly given the nature of the business we're in, where you look at that and you see you have an end-to-end supply chain and you've got specialist suppliers beneath that. So we're trying to unravel that to see how well this could work. So we're literally working our way through it. We've reached a position with it, but we just need more information to scrutinise it a bit further.
That would provide the transparency, but there's nowhere in the contract to define the percentage split between subcontractor and main contractor. That's all within their negotiation.
Well, the other issue would be if you had a subcontractor, for example. I mean, if you notice that some of the organisations are listed themselves as subcontractors, so they may decide as the lead organisation that one of their subcontractors underperforms, they could decide to take. It could be the contingency organisation themselves to fill that gap. That's one of the attractions of having direct delivery with these organisations. We had discussions here about the prospect of organisations winning these contracts where they were just managing agents. I feared myself the risks of that. Now, some of those organisations could certainly have come through, but I would have had concerns about whether or not that would have been as robust as what we have here. So some of that could very much be in the commercial mix. Or you could find that if a supply chain member underperformed, they may give larger share to another end-to-end member or bring on a new end-to-end member. It's a dynamic situation of performance, and that's one of the things we're asking to be done here. We're asking for the performance of the supply chain to be well managed to make sure that the performance reaches and maintains very high standards. And if there's underperformance, that it's dealt with quickly and responded to appropriately.
Pat. Thanks, Chair. Good morning. Clearly, I have some concerns, and I'll try and articulate them, particularly in relation to my own constituency. But come the 1st of September, we have approximately 500 people who could find themselves unemployed, who work for various subcontractors. Has a formal TUPE arrangement been in place? Have they been notified during the tendering process that they could lose their jobs or transfer jobs over?
Notified by who, sorry?
By the department. Whose responsibility would it have been?
Well, we've checked this position out as we've gone through the process, and our understanding of the process is that it's a matter of TUPE arrangements are certainly a matter between existing organisations and the new organisations coming in. That's the position that we've been advised will apply here.
So the new organisations will have the responsibility of notifying staff. Is that what you're
Well, the
saying?
responsibility of understanding whether or not they're prepared to take staff from those other organisations. I think that's the piece.
So the time frame for that, should that have really taken place, or when should staff be informed?
Those negotiations will start to take place now that the award letters have been issued, and the new lead contractors will be getting details of the staff already involved in the delivery of steps to work. They will have considered the to-be implications and will be considering whether or not to-be, in their view, applies, and will be entering into discussions with the existing steps to work contractors.
So that'll happen from today? Is
It
that what
will
you're telling
happen
me?
from today.
The contract, in terms of going live, will not be going live until October. It'll not happen in September because of the delays we've had.
So steps to work will continue to October?
In terms of the stock that are currently in the pipeline, yes.
Okay. So some of the points you made previously, Committee, Colin, about any new contractor coming should be putting their roots in the community, delivering and being backed up by a very strong, well-managed supply chain. Are you confident you've achieved that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, then. You also made a point at that particular meeting. Wholesale changing of the supply chain would be of cause for concern for you. That's what you said. Okay, there's 16 existing subcontractors in Derry on the supply chain, existing for steps to work.
Well, just let me clarify something. What I've said to you, wholesale change of the supply chain based on these bids. If these contractors come back and they change their supply chain wholesale between what they proposed and what they go live with, that's what would cause me concern.
Okay, then of the existing 16 supply chains in my constituency, how many of them form part of the EOS supply chain now?
I haven't checked that position out.
It was difficult for us to check as well when we received these this morning.
Yeah.
To make any sense, my understanding, and I briefly went through these, there are probably none of them on it. Does that not cause you concern? That given, Chair, this is very valid because we've heard from the officials how articulate, how good, or how models of good practice the supply chain was, particularly in my constituency. And is there any of those existing supply chain on this list that you provided me this morning, just in case I've got it wrong? And it does cause me concern that you wouldn't know that.
Well, I don't see why it would, because I don't have a relationship with the supply chain under the Steps to Work contractors. It's a matter for the Steps to Work contractors. I have a direct relationship with the Steps to Work contractors.
Could you not accept that the whole point being along was we're trying to provide on the steps to success a well-managed, experienced supply chain?
Yeah.
And in my constituency, if I have 16 supply chains who are doing, and you've told me, your officials have told me, that the work they're doing is good value for money and they're meeting the targets. Does it not concern you that not one of those supply chains is now on that list?
Well, if you actually look, Mr. Ramsey, at the proposed supply chain for contract lot 2, the end-to-end suppliers, L Enterprises, currently involved in the delivery of steps to work, network personnel.
Sorry, where are we?
We are
On
talking
the EOS page?
Yes, the EOS page,
Yeah.
which I understand is your contract area, or your constituency. L Enterprises network personnel from currently involved.
Is LE Enterprises presently one of the supply chains and steps to work?
They are.
They are, yes.
Okay.
Roe Valley Community Education Forum, again, currently involved in steps to work. Roe Valley Enterprises also involved.
They're not in my constituency.
Involved, and well, I apologise for not appreciating the constituency boundaries, but you know, our geographical area for steps to success is perhaps wider now than some of the constituencies, and combines a number of them. So when you actually look across the northern region, there are a number of organisations and a good number of top-performing steps to work organisations in the supply chain for the new provider, and that does provide the department with a degree of comfort. And Tony can mention as well the involvement of USL on Work Connect. And again, USL is an umbrella group, I understand, that has a number of organisations.
Well, no, USL are a non-departmental public body that deliver Workable and a range of other disability programmes at the minute right across Northern Ireland, and have a profile across all three of the new Steps to Success contract areas, and they would be specifically there for ESA clients.
I have no difficulty. That organisation, named the Specialist Organisation, carry out particularly good work. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But I don't know any track record they have on steps to work. What does cause me concern is what am I supposed to be telling, and we could have hundreds of people in my own constituency who I have met who continuously are progressing and getting people on their work, and the track record is good. What am I supposed to tell them when they're out of a job now? What are you going to tell them when they're out of a job?
It's an interesting question you're posing, because let's just look back at the principle here we're talking about. And the principle we're talking about, and I've said very carefully here that we've put this policy through a number of iterations. We've been here a number of times. We've gone through a very open and transparent procurement process. We can't second guess that procurement process today. You can't say to providers in any locality, anywhere, under procurement rules, and Sharon can come in this, that, by the way, see, because we've got a wee supply chain in that particular neck of the woods, they're protected, they're safe, we're going to keep them there. As part of our procurement process, we need to see those names tick, 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 tick. Let's make sure they're all in terms of the supply chain. That's not what this was about, Pat. So you're coming from an entirely different place than me in this. My job in this, and the job of our department, was to make sure we had the best quality, best value for money provision in place for all of Northern Ireland. Now, in terms of doing that, in terms of making sure we realise that, I'm asking bidders to bring forward what they think is the best supply chain, locally based and with the right level of expertise across the piece. Now, if you're asking me, do I think there's going to be a degree of disruption, change for individual employees and organisations? Absolutely. That's what happens when contracts come to an end. And let us not forget that Steps to Work had come to an end. It had come to a finish point. There is no more Steps to Work. So no matter what we're discussing here, whether we went with 10 contract areas again or whether we went for 3, I could not sit here and give you a guarantee that those organisations that you like and that you would want me to say, what am I going to say to those people who are losing their jobs? What I'll say is the commercial reality is you're working for an organisation that has not found itself as part of a supply chain, and it needs to find itself as part of a supply chain either with another provider, or does it have other training contracts that it's currently delivering? So I'm not so sure that the level of fallout from this is as great as people are making out. I do not know the answer to that.
Well, it always fades me that Colin takes a lot of this stuff so personal. It's not that I'd like an organisation. And that's a point that you're throwing back at me because I like an organisation.
I'm not making it personal,
You,
Pat.
you have made it very clear to this committee of how reassured you were of the work that's carried out by those same supply chains at the present time. Does it not concern you that those models of best practice are not now forming part of the Steps to Success project?
And we've had this before, and we've discussed with you that the models that we've had under Steps to Work are not models of best practice, they're models of good practice. And what we're trying to do is make those models of better practice. And what we've been trying to do with Steps to Success is to make it a better proposition for all of the people of Northern Ireland, for the unemployed and for employers. And just for the record, I'm not taking this personally. I'm very passionate about this. I believe in it very much. I put heart and soul into this, as have my team. So you need to understand as well, I think the protocols that we have had to work within to actually arrive at this outcome have been very, very narrow. I mean, you can concur with that, Sharon, because I think it's the truth.
I think we have to be mindful that the public procurement legal framework is a particularly litigious framework, and we have to work within the boundaries of that, not only with the letter of the law but also the case law. And we are aware of the fact that training programmes have been subject to legal challenge before. So CPD has played a particularly challenging role with the department to make sure that any lessons from the case law, all areas of transparency, all areas of process were adhered to, and that every bidder was given an equal and fair chance at the qualification stage, which was the questionnaire, and at the tender stage.
No, I appreciate that, Chair. I'm sorry for going on, but you also made it very clear, Sharon, that separate to the main procurement, there was a money competition, as you termed it. It was your language, a money competition in determining from the main contractors how they were going to get in the supply chain. Was that a matter for them?
Sorry, Pat, I didn't make that
Brandon,
comment.
Brenton, sorry. Brenton, okay. There was a money competition,
Yes.
Brenton, and that involved the main contractors then having their own process
Yes.
as well. So are you confident that the existing supply chain had an opportunity to be part of that process?
Well, I have no reason to believe otherwise. And again, this was a matter for them. It was a matter for the proposed lead contractor to put in place a model and a delivery structure that would meet our needs. And they looked at a number of factors, and I understand that they advertised and that there was transparency in the process that they carried out to ensure that they got the best result.
They may have got the cheapest result, but that doesn't mean they got the time will tell whether they've got the best result.
Well, I think
in terms of our assessment, which we have to do on paper,
yes.
in terms of the bids we received and information in front of us, when we look at the quality of what they say they were going to do, when we look at the geographical coverage and the spread, and when we look at the accessibility arrangements, and we look at the use of technology to make sure that accessibility is available 24/7. In terms of all of that, Pat, yeah, I think I'm satisfied, as I can be at this stage in terms of what was in front of me in a bid. I'm satisfied that we have done exactly the right thing as an official going through a Northern Ireland public procurement exercise. Could I have done any differently? Not a millimetre.
Yeah, there's a number of other questions, but there's other members.
Aye, I'll come back. Sammy?
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. First of all, I want to say I'm hugely disappointed that there's no Northern Ireland company that's got one of the three contracts. And can I suggest to you that if this was France or Germany or indeed Wales, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about Northern Ireland companies not getting through to the final stage here in terms of the main contract. Because all research would show that, although you talked, Sharon, about the criteria and that, all research would show that the Germans, and certainly the French and the Welsh, adhere to all that criteria, and yet they're much more successful than us. Surely there's something wrong in terms of the protocol. So can I ask you, who actually set the criteria for this? Because that's one of the... I've been approached by a number of people this past number of months. I think I've said before, Colin, and said, look, whoever set the criteria, they were set at a level that none of us could have got through the second stage.
Will the assessment panel set the criteria which I chaired? And we did that, and we took on board the feedback from CPD about making sure that the criteria were fair, transparent and accessible to all. We did have Northern Ireland organisations bidding as lead contractors for the second stage. And I believe we could have had more bidders from Northern Ireland through to a second stage if the quality of the bids had been better.
Is there anything we can learn from this?
I think there are plenty of lessons learned in here. I think when we look at the assessment criteria, for example, when you look down at issues like performance management and management systems, I think one of the big things in here has been the capability that we were looking for organisations to be able to lift the performance of an organisation in a very consistent way and lift the performance of an entire supply chain, and to make sure that all of the various systems that need to be in place in terms of performance management, in terms of IT, in terms of case management, all of that needs to be in place. We have organisations who have provided us, on paper, with evidence of best-in-class systems management, casework management approaches. Some of that we wouldn't have seen before.
And in terms of I mentioned about Germany, I think that's a good example. Could we look at that? You know, why have they been so successful in terms of local procurement? And the reason why I say it is that obviously we're coming through the United Youth Programme. I'm assuming, I'm just hoping this is right, we're not just going to slot this in to what's happening at the moment. There'll be a process. Those Northern Ireland.
This will be a separate process, and we're looking at separate design as well on that. I don't know what way the design will pan out as yet, but this is not going to be more simply plugging it into this, no.
Going back to the Pat's point about his own constituency, certainly in Belfast, let's talk about Belfast. I think at this point in time, there are 32 organisations involved in the Steps to Work programme. Around about, if I remember right, it's 32. That's now cut down to 4. And again, has the department carried out an assessment of how many jobs we're going to lose as a result of that? Not just here, but right across Northern Ireland in a sense. Because I mean, I've had people come to me, and in fact, they were told it was going to be September, that they were going to lose their job in September.
Also delay on to October. Yeah. But I think in terms of understanding, part of the implementation planning will be understanding how many staff, for example, if they're in Belfast, Ingis themselves actually need. Because they'll need to absorb, and I think they will absorb a number of staff from the existing organisations. So they will have to recruit to make sure and to deliver their 40% directly on the ground. So I think you'll see quite a bit of recruitment activity, not just from them, but from the others as well. So I think that will be a factor. In terms of estimating what the numbers will, difficult to judge. It's very difficult to gauge, given that there is going to be a commercial dynamic around that.
And in relation to the TUPE, I think there's a legal requirement for people to be told, to give notice. Has anybody been given notice of the TUPE arrangement at this point in time?
One organisation contacted us, just asked for clarification on the process. We checked that out and communicated it back to them. And they're in Belfast, and we've alerted Ingis to that fact as well. No doubt Ingis will be in touch once they've considered that.
Okay, that's okay, Chair. Thank you.
Fran?
Sure, and many thanks for the presentation. And I know that at times when you come here, you may believe that we're maybe being unfair and a bit hard. And I know that everybody puts out on people that come in front of the committee. And I obviously think the committee does respects that you put a lot of time, effort and hard work into this. And they just deal with strategy, you just deal with how things can work out in paper. But we deal with the other end of it, we deal with people. And we deal with people that are going to be impacted by this. And I know what you're saying about, well, if there's X amount of jobs going to be lost, that will be up to the new provider and the thing. But the figures that we have been given is that there are 500 people may lose their jobs. I think this week Moy Park created 470 jobs. That's not wiped out that these 500 people lose their jobs. So we have a concern on how people can be slotted in to any organ. So that's why TUPE is important to us.
Yeah.
And I know that you're 100% right on procurement. You have to be legally careful in how you operate the whole thing. But from where we're sitting, over this whole period, we turn on the news or we read papers and we hear about English companies that provide training and what they call job opportunities and the serious problems that they have had. And then we suddenly find that similar companies or some of the same companies have made applications here. So there is a lot of concern on the way of the thing. But I think that the end product for all of us is providing a good job creation, job training scheme that'll bring us from where we are now and the possible thing. But I think, Pat, like Sammy, that's where our concerns rest, and I have no doubt that from today on that what we should be doing is working to ensure that we get the best possible outcome. But one of the concerns, again, that have been raised by this committee is, and it's not only in terms of this, but in a lot of things, especially in the ring procurement, that has concerned me, is the tap slicing or the amount of money it's spent on the administration from outside and how much is lost to the actual scheme itself. And I think we were told up to 25% could be spent on administration at one stage. But has that been worked out? Does that be factored in or featured in? How much will be spent outside? And I know you're saying that there may be 40%, 50%, 60% of the thing will be delivered. It's how that infrastructure is actually moved from A to B to ensure that you have a successful programme.
Well, that's not something that we are currently settled on, and the figure of 20% was given to the committee in relation to the existing Steps to Work programme. That we know that a number of organisations currently involved in delivering Steps to Work, and their local organisations top slice 20% off the amount that they give to their supply chain, and they claim it's for the administrative services and the assistance that they provide in general in supporting both the organisation and the client when they're on Steps to Work. In terms of Steps to Success, that is a commercial arrangement between the new lead contractor and the subcontractor. Now, again, if we have a project bank account, we will have something, we will have closer visibility on what that amount might be or what it might look like. At the moment, we don't have that information, and these organisations who have signed up to be parts of supply chain will no doubt have considered that as a commercial issue before they signed a heads of agreement with the potential lead contractor.
Sure. To see, just following on from that, I think, Brenton, you had said that one of the companies, I think it was the Belfast one, will be setting up shop in Mollusk.
It was EOS.
EOS, yes.
Tell me, to see in terms of people getting from A to B, people who may say, is there expenses paid to people to get there?
Yes.
Is right across it? What would that be?
Both childcare and travel.
Our costs are absorbed by the department, our costs that are absorbed by the department.
And secondly, to see at the moment where Sammy had said there's 32 deliverers and there will be called 4, and I think in terms of Belfast, is there enough time between now and the beginning of the process to work that in or work it through?
Again, that is something that, as part of the detailed planning that we now need to do with implementation, we will look at their detailed implementation plans. We will assess all of the key issues that are part of implementation. There will be an operational readiness test conducted on each of the suppliers before the department allows them to go live. So, as to whether or not they're ready to go live, we will be in a better position once we work through the detail of their plans and we carry out our own assessment as to how achievable those plans are.
Yeah, and I thought that the begin date was the 1st of September, but you're saying it's October?
Yes, because of the delays in actually awarding the contract, the providers will have 90 days to set up the new service. That 90 days period will start from the 21st of July because of the traditional holidays. So that will automatically carry us forward into October. And that does provide a little more time for a number of these issues to be looked at by the department and to be considered by the new contractor as well. And I think that as we move forward in the next steps, that it's key for the department to work very closely with the contractor to be cited on what will be the main issues in implementation and to try to minimise any impacts. We want to give this a soft landing for both the existing supply chains and the participants on Steps to Work, as well as introduce the new Steps to Success programme at the same time. So as one plane is coming down, another is taking off, and there will be some tricky and challenging management for the department as part of that process.
Landings?
Sorry?
As long as there are no crash landings.
Well, Pat, you know, we're on a wing and a prayer.
Can I just add something there? I welcome your comment about the committee. The committee, we respect the challenge, and I know you respect that coming back from us. I am passionate about this. I believe in what we're doing. One point I want to make, though, you're saying to us we're more concerned about systems than we are about people. I've been in the job now nearly 4 years as the Employment Service Director, and the people I'm most concerned about are those people who are unemployed. And one of the first things I recognise in looking at Steps to Work with, we needed to get more value out of our work programme than we were currently getting. And we needed to help more people consistently across this province get into work and keep their jobs whenever they get them. So I'm very passionate about helping those people. I really don't want to see people dislodged from their jobs any more than you do. But my hope is that many of those people who are currently in organisations that maybe haven't won bids do find themselves in a position where they can get jobs with other bidders now or other parts of the supply chain as their capacity needs increase. And I don't think it's as gloomy as 500 jobs, and that's it. I think there will be a counterbalance in terms of the numbers that are now required. We don't know what the size of that is yet. We've seen a first run implementation plan. We have no idea what the actual scale of the number of employees required is. So there'll be a net off here that needs to be done on that. So I don't want you to think we're sitting here as heartless strategists, because we're very much on the ground every single day. And we do understand. I mean, we've had to take contracts away from Steps to Work contractors. We've had to stop them. I've had to stop them. I've had to make those decisions. And they're not easy decisions to make, and you're very conscious of people working for those providers. But if the performance isn't good enough, that's what you have to do. And this would happen again here, even with lead contractors. If any of these organisations don't perform, they'll not be there. It's as simple as that.
Sure, it's just a follow on from that, because the 500 is a figure that we picked up on.
Yeah.
And Brenton says that there's at least one of the new contractors has come forward and asked about arrangements. What surprised me is that all three has came along. And I think, regardless, I think that the department has an obligation to ensure that all the information that these contractors require is supplied to them, and that an eye needs to be kept. But some of the people that have been working on the previous arrangement have built up an expertise, have been there for a considerable period of time, and they need to be given the opportunity, first of all, to know what's happening to them, and secondly, what their future and what their place is going to be in any of these new setups.
Acknowledge that. You want to say something?
And Chair, I think we have made clear to all, as part of the tendering process for all the new organisations, that we would want to work with them to ensure, because we obviously have the links with Steps to Work as well as the new Steps to Success, so we want to work with the new providers. Obviously, already stated, TUPE is under their legal control, but we'll work and in terms of information flows and so on that make it work in practice.
And just to reassure the committee that this is something that's being actively pursued, our first meeting with a contractor is tomorrow afternoon, followed by 2 full-day sessions with other providers next week. So we've been in touch with them to make them aware that the implementation plan is something that is of high priority to the department. We alerted them of the committee's potential interest in this area, so we will be looking at TUPE, at the recruitment, at the premises and all aspects of their implementation plan to make sure that it's as robust and it provides the department with the assurance required that this will be a well-managed process.
Just to add to that, Chair, I think we've selected organisations that will want to assimilate themselves into Northern Ireland and who view this as being here for the long haul. It'll be interesting to see how the performance maps out in terms of what they have put on paper. But I think given some of the performance that I've seen elsewhere, I think it could bode well.
It's just a thing, and when asked this, I think, come back a while, is there built-in reviews of performance?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And how often would they be?
We would be.
The reviews of performance, their attachments will be reviewed on how many people they're actually bringing onto the programme, will be reviewed on a monthly basis, as will the number of people finding work. They will have formal reviews carried out by my colleagues in contract management, at least on a quarterly basis, and they will have the quality of service assessed as well, at least twice a year. So the level of scrutiny for the providers will be quite intense as well, but hopefully by working together they will welcome that amount of scrutiny because it provides assurance to both the department and them that they're meeting our requirement.
And you see, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I think it's also important to say the funding model has been designed to ensure that there is an element that goes towards job outputs and, much more importantly, sustained job outputs. So as well as the paper reviews, the performance, good performance, there's enhanced rates payable if targets are beaten and so on. So hopefully between the two models, the financial model and also the traditional contract management, it drives performance.
So you see, and how do you determine sustainable employment? Is there a time limit where people have to stay in jobs? And because I know this has proved disasters for some of the companies. And in England there was a massaging of figures that they give the impression that they were doing much more than they were letting on. And I take it everything has been taken into account to ensure that can't happen.
Yes, we have looked closely at the lessons learned from elsewhere, and indeed we have looked at the evidence that we will be required to support a claim for payment to the department, and that's something that's being communicated to the providers by way of operational guidelines that we will put in place and agree with them, and they will then be monitored against those operational guidelines. And our colleagues from CPD again have been involved in helping us draw up those, so that there's a sense of reasonableness and fairness for all parties.
Okay, Sally, quickly.
Yes, I just linked in I think it was something that Tony had mentioned, and maybe it's something that Colin also alluded to. In relation to some of these, the three companies that have now been awarded today this contract, in the event that they don't live up to the mark, what is the process in terms of the down list? Is there a B list, or is there someone fourth on the list? And the reason why I'm saying that, Colin, if you remember, there was the TWL a few years ago. Outside company came in, made a mess of things, as you know. It was an embarrassment, and you terminated it, and fair play, you terminated it, and you re-awarded that to a local company. So, what is the process in the event of that happening?
Let me clarify, in terms of the current list, there might be a currency for a few months only. Would that be the case?
Well, tenders are valid for 90 days that they were submitted, but we've come across this situation before, and there's a bit of a grey area in the law about whether you can move to the next company, the next highest scoring tender. So it would all have to be worked out very, very carefully and legal advice taken. But certainly the performance and contract management regime is very, very robust. If anybody doesn't perform under the contract, they're given a number of days to remedy, and the remedy is that they get up to a certain level of satisfaction. And the new directives, the new procurement legislative framework that's due to come in later this year, will allow past performance to be taken into consideration about whether a contractor can actually tender for contracts again. So there's a different change in environment with contract management, but it would have to work through the legal implications of moving to the next person on the list.
But in the event of an organisation, one of the lead contractors not performing well enough, say in a year's time, 18 months' time, we would see the signs of that coming pretty early on. We do the assessments that Brendan was talking about, holistic assessments. We look at the quality of it, we look at the performance against the targets in terms of job outcomes and so forth. So we're very, very tight to that. If that was to be the case and we thought someone was starting to slip to the extent that they would be put on improvement notice, and there's a three-stage process with that. If that happened, we would play at that stage a contingency operation for a new fresh procurement. And to do that for a single contract area would not be anything on the scale of what we've had to do with the three at the same time. We've had experience of doing that quickly in the past and could do it again.
Thank you, Chair.
Just in regards to assessment, I think there was something you said, Brendan, you're moving away from using ETI and doing it all in-house now.
Yes. With someone that we have poached from the ETI, one of their previous inspectors has come across to set up an in-house resource, and again will bring in, I think, on an interchange opportunity, some of the people from the sector. Again, making sure that we've got some local involvement and some local expertise in this. So we're trying to build a number of good practice models as we take steps to success forward.
Okay, thank you. Colm, if you could just inform maybe the three successful companies that we would be interested in taking a presentation from them. So. Okay, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you to everybody as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, any other business? No, can I just remind you of our planning day, 3rd of September at 10 a.m. in Loughborough College. Date and time and place next meeting. Next meeting takes place 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 10th of September, 2014, 29 Parliament Buildings. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, members.